All right. Hello. Is this working? Hello? Oh, that works. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Education Subcommittee on Policy. I'm going to do just a few housekeeping items before we start. I know we've got some members who are still on their way. Number three, actually, it's three housekeeping items. Number one, we are in a tight room here, so if you can, just like at church, kind of squeeze in, or on the airplane, or I'm trying to think of a good example. Movie theater, I don't know. Squeeze in. Number two, there's a sign-up sheet on that table right there. If you'd like to speak, we are taking public comment testimony. This is the time to do that. We got a 2-hour meeting, so make sure to sign up there. And number three, to the news folks, get my good side. Always, thank you. Yeah, I will say, as I mentioned, this is the time we want to make sure to hear everyone out. As I did say, we do have 2 hours. So for those that do get up and speak, we'll probably try to keep you to a certain time. So be thinking right now, how could I say the most impactful thing in the least amount of time that would help allow us to hear from everybody? I'll also make a note, we have several overlapping committee hearings. So if you see some of us, including myself, going in and out, don't worry, we're all here. Well, I'm gonna give us, this is such a good crowd here. I'm gonna give us about 2 more minutes, so stay at ease. We got a couple more members who are on the way, so talk amongst yourself. Hello. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and get started here. Once again, welcome to the Education Subcommittee on Policy. I will ask my friend and colleague, Chairman Chokus, if you would open us up in a word of prayer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you have given us, and thank you for the opportunity to serve this great state. Thank you for the people in the audience out here that have concerns and interest in the future of our state. Please give us wisdom, discernment, and help us balance the difficult issues that we face on a day-to-day basis. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to start our committee how we start every education subcommittee policy. If we have a student in the audience, would you please raise your hand so we can recognize you? There we go. We got a couple. All right. You are why we are here in the center of our focus. Do we have any teachers in the audience? Right there up front. Right there. All right. Thank you for what you do. Best part of my day is when I drop my kids off and teachers take over. With that, if the author of the bill, Chairman Bonner, if you would make your way up to the podium, that would be great. Thank you. And Chairman, while you're getting settled, we are reading from LC 492204.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're live.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to present House Bill 267 that we have styled the Riley Gaines Act. If those of you that are familiar with Mrs. Gaines, unfortunately, the incident for which she is most known happened here in Georgia at a swim meet in Georgia Tech. And so she has been a great advocate for this cause and has really been really advocating for this all over the country. And here in Georgia, we have decided to rally around that and have styled it as the Riley Gaines Act. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, is I'm going to run through some of the highlights of the bill. There's a good bit of kind of code revision that's in it, so we'll just kind of touch on that. But run through the bill and then be available for any questions that you have. And I know that there have been some letters that have been placed before the members of support. And then we also have a young lady that will provide testimony whenever that's appropriate.
Perfect.
All right, so simply looking at the bill, starting off really on the second page is where it gets started. We go into and essentially start defining terms, and this is the portion of the bill that addresses the spaces that we are trying to protect. And all we're attempting to do through this legislation, Mr. Chairman, is simply provide a level playing field for the girls in Georgia to make sure that when they step on that athletic field, that all things are equal, so that essentially biological males are not competing against biological females. So we go at great lengths to define a number of terms, starting in that first section 2.1. We do go into those spaces that are specifically protected, looking at that on page 3, starting at line 43. And these are specific to those athletic events. And we do provide what we consider to be a reasonable accommodation in that, so that if there's a student that is not comfortable either being in the women's locker room or the men's locker room, that facility is required to offer a reasonable accommodation for them so that they feel comfortable in that. And our goal is not to single out any student, any individual, but to simply provide an arena of fairness and make sure that everybody is comfortable in those areas where they change and where they use those locker room services. We do make exceptions that are noted in there for custodial maintenance and inspection purposes, as well as any occurrence of an emergency that requires medical assistance, and then parents and guardians with a minor in there. We also go in to address any overnight trips that are related to an athletic event to make sure that we check that box to make sure that biological males are not in the same sleeping quarters as a biological female. And again, it does make an exception for immediate family members in that. Skipping down to starting at line 92, this starts to cover the enforcement provisions of this area of the bill, and it provides that authority to the Professional Standards Commission, and it's spelled out how they would go about adjudicating an issue in regards to this matter. And then starting on line 108, we go into the cause of action for parents or students that are actually harmed in the event that this policy is violated. Starting in on Article 5, which is on page 6, that this goes into the portion that is for the athletic events themselves. So you'll also see a lot of the same definitions and some very detailed definitions there on the events themselves and what is covered. So those definitions start in 131, run through 149. We designate the team designation starting in line 160, and then starting in line 178, we go into those restrictions on the male participation in female sports. And I would like to highlight starting on 178 through 180 that we do reference the birth certificate as a means to establish the sex. We do spell out, though, that it's designated on the birth certificate that was designated at or near the time of the participant's birth. That would, in our mind, cover any issues where there may be other states that allow folks to change their birth certificates or don't necessarily identify the sex immediately after birth. Then starting on page 9 on 191, it goes into the various causes of action for violations of this portion of the bill, which are very similar to the causes of action that appeared in the first part of the bill regarding spaces. And then on page 10, starting in line 210, this essentially starts until, for the remainder of the bill, goes into what we consider the code cleanup, which simply replaces gender with sex and establishes that throughout code, that sex is that determining factor in terms of collecting data, managing statistics, and that kind of thing. And it addresses any number of areas of code, everything from the legal in terms of dealing with legal documents to organ donation to crime statistics and reporting, that kind of thing. And that's simply to make sure that when we collect that data, that we have very decisive and definitive data points so that we know everything from the crime statistics to those that are how they're annotating that sex on their organ donations and things like that. So essentially, Mr. Chairman, that's the nuts and bolts of the bill. Like I said, it is a lengthy bill, but the majority portion of that is kind of the code revisions, and what we're trying to do in this is make our Georgia code consistent throughout all those areas that may reference gender. We reference sex, and sex is a defined term as it relates to this bill. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I know we do have a few amendments that we could discuss at the proper time, but we'll be happy to stand for any questions that the committee has.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will pause for a second, give the committee time to, I know it's a couple pages here to go through. Any questions from the committee for the bill author at this time? I will go down to my front row here. I think I saw number 7 first, Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just still going through the bill, but I did have a couple questions that you could probably answer pretty quickly. So on lines 51, I guess starting at 50, when you talk about the multiple occupancy restrooms and changing areas, I guess it's for like a sporting event. If they're having a sporting event, you would designate one or the other.
That's correct.
Is that per event? I'm just thinking back to my high school days where you might have the boys team one night, or that actually early in the day you might have the boys team playing soccer. Later that day you have the girls team playing soccer, but they both use the same restrooms. How does that work under this bill?
Right. So it does allow that school the flexibility if a school has the ability, they want to permanently designate one, or one for that purpose, but it also allows the flexibility if they just need to do it for a specific event.
So how does that work? Does the athletic director walk up and put signs up each time, or like
well,
that
would certainly be one way to do it, yes. But I mean, it's very, very similar. I would submit to designating a visitor's locker room, for instance, where you may have where I went to high school, we had, it was like the JV locker room. It was when we played a team, it was designated as a visitor locker room. So very similar situation to that, but it does provide the flexibility for the school to address that however they choose.
Okay, just
as long as they're meeting the intent.
Follow-up questions, I guess. This is where I guess I'm just thinking through it logistically. Boys team plays, they put up the sign, boys locker room. Girls team plays later, they put up the sign in the girls locker room. The team's not in there, but the boys team realized he left something in there. Are they setting themselves up for a $1,000 fine? Because typically visitor locker rooms, you don't get fined, but they would have to work through that, I'm assuming, right?
I would say so. I mean, it does, this would certainly motivate any individual school or school system to come up with some rules to address this and some guidelines. But I think something like that would probably fall under best practices.
Okay, and then last question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting my constituents get their money worth. But as far as the fines, the Education Committee has spent several days talking about school safety. Are there any fines in there for right of cause if someone violates like student records? I'm just curious why we're putting a fine in here, but something as important as school safety, we're not putting any fines in there to penalize staff for violating it.
So I'm not the author of the school safety bill. That would probably be a question best for them.
I'm just not used to seeing fines.
Yeah, I can only speak to this. But I would submit that, if that's what the committee's intent and will is on the school safety bill, that they might want to consider that. But
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's stay down here in the front row, number 8 with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, good afternoon. We got a few questions, if I may, Chairman Hilton.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand the coverage area of this bill. So does this bill apply to specific grade levels of competition? Is it?
it's K through 12 and our collegiate.
Okay. So K through 12 and collegiate, do we have any known cases of trans students trying to compete with peers of a different natural born sex?
Well, as you are aware, several years ago, we authorized the Georgia High School Association to promulgate a rule that would prohibit biological males competing against biological females. And so once that rule went in place, so it's certainly been restrictive since then. So I would not have expected to have any incidences since then. So we are simply putting into code what has up to now been a rule.
So there, just to be clear on my end, there have not been any known instances of students trying to participate in competitive sports with peers who are of a different natural born sex.
Well, for instance, as I mentioned at the outset, one of the most highlighted incidences occurred at Georgia Tech with Miss Riley Gaines competing against a biological male. So we certainly know that it does happen and has happened, and in some areas of the country and in some areas around the world through Olympic events, it still does happen. And so what we're attempting to do is to ensure that that it never happens again here in Georgia.
One
Yes,
question,
thank you.
Chairman.
Yep.
Who all would be able to call into question a student's gender or sex?
Well, it lays out a process through the same process as any other complaint through the Professional Standards Commission.
So, for example, someone from a completely different part of the state could file a claim that X student in a different part of the state is not a woman or not a man.
Say it again.
So anyone, this would not limit who would be able to bring claims against a student. This would not limit who specifically would be able to bring claims forward, questioning a student's sex.
That's correct. It is consistent with every other complaint process that exists, right? So if someone wanted to complain about their local school system but didn't have a kid in that school, their complaint would still be accepted and adjudicated.
Yeah, my only, I mean, it's a big concern, especially in this political climate, right? I just imagine inviting frivolous claims left and right. If we're not placing discretion or decision-making power in the hands of someone who has been harmed by said student. I mean,
Well, now to be clear, the cause of action does require harm, right? So if someone's going to file a cause of action, which is different than filing a complaint, a cause of action does require you to show harm. So in that instance, it does kind of regulate that, and I would say limit the amount of cases that would potentially be put forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And to my left, your right, down front, number 1, Chairman Jaspers with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Bonner, I dropped a bill on this subject many years ago, and I just got to tell you, this bill is light years better than anything I could have created. Your thoughtful and thorough examination of the subject is great. I just have one question. On 95, we're talking about the fines from PSC. Do they do that in any other? The only question I've had from a constituent was on the fine. Do they do that in any other case, or is this just to be the first unique?
Yeah. Well, they do, and we are
Okay.
we do have an amendment to offer after a consultation with the PSC that would essentially it would essentially line up this bill more directly with their statutory authority right. So we have had conversation and have received input from the PSC on this.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. To my right, your left, Chairman Chokus with a question, number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for Chairman Bonner for bringing this legislation. I've got 2 daughters and a son who competed in athletics. And the question that I have, and it deals with as the children progress and they compete in sports, different sports. My children competed in swimming. They compete with people from out of state, and you'll have competitions from out of state. How will your bill address that?
So anyone that competes in the state of Georgia would have to adhere to these, or they would not be allowed to compete. Fortunately, there has been a push at the national level through the NCAA, as well as some effort with the Olympic Committee and things like that to make that consistent. So with the president's recent executive order, that helped to kind of solidify that competition requirement at the NCAA level. So we fully expect that anyone that enters into the state of Georgia, just like any other kind of general activity, they would have to abide by Georgia law.
Perfect. May I follow up, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I commend you on this legislation, and I just wanted to add that we had an Olympic gold medal winner from Americas by the name of Angel Myers, and that in a recent article I read that the over 900 medals, Olympic medals, went to biological males when they should have gone to biological females. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you for this legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my left, number 13, Representative Cox with a question.
Thank you for bringing the bill. As a native of Georgia, and my mother being born in Grady Hospital, and had the opportunity to play high school basketball at Milton High School 4 years. In the fight that women had back in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, and she graduated in 1961 and did an exceptional job in all sports at the high school at the time. She fought, as many have, which now we know under Title IX. In my self-coaching, it's something that I personally am passionate about. The girls having opportunities to play against the girls because of all that happened from the early parts of the 1900s to get us to where we are today. Do you believe that this bill will help support Title IX and continue to help girls' sports and women to be able to flourish in the athletic world against their colleagues?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. The bill certainly intends and has every intent to reinforce and support all of the original intent of Title IX. I've got a daughter who plays soccer, and I tell you, her confidence level is high. She's motivated to finish high school, go to college. We know from studies that girls that compete in sports are typically do better in school. They have more confidence. They tend to land better jobs and excel in leadership. All of those things that we just want to make sure that when a female steps onto that athletic field, that is a level playing field and they have every opportunity to excel.
Thank you. We're going to go down to my favorite two down here again. We're going to go Representative Wilkerson with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we're laying out our creds, I also coached girls soccer for a number of years, and I will be honest, none of them have actually asked me to support this, but that doesn't mean which way I'm going, because they've always felt that they can compete with anybody. So I'm glad the men are protecting women. I appreciate that, but they haven't asked for it. So, but I do have a question. On lines 177 to 180, the birth certificate piece, how does that work if someone does not have a birth certificate? If someone is undocumented, can that birth certificate then be used to do whatever? I'm not familiar enough with how often birth certificates are used in schools, and do they have to carry it around with them?
Well, I know that when we first entered our kids into public school, really any school, we had to produce those documents, right? And then when our kids wanted to participate in athletics, we had to produce even more documents, right? As well as to get all of the medical records and to get a separate medical exam just to ensure that they were healthy when they entered into that athletic activity. So it would follow that same course as far as required documents.
But you have one like I do. What happens if they do not have one? Is there any other documentation that students can use to participate in activities? Because remember, we have to educate every child, and so we can't deny them.
This does not establish the birth certificate as the end-all, be-all. It says that it may be used to help identify. There are other ways to essentially confirm the sex of an individual, which a school could utilize in order to ensure that to meet the intent of biological males participating against biological males.
So does this bill allow physical inspection of individuals?
So we have an amendment. The intent is not to have kids line up in a row and everybody strip down and get inspected. That is not the intent of the bill whatsoever. We do have some language to put forward that would specify that and clarify that particular point, but that is not the intent of the bill.
But it would ban it or would not ban physical inspection
The
of
language
children?
that we have, and then in fact someone may offer as well, it would clarify that is not the intent of the bill.
Intent versus allowed is different.
It would prohibit that from taking place.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lallier to my right.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Bonner, I'm trying to clarify the bathroom prohibition component. So this bill would prevent a trans girl who lives her life as a woman, as a young woman, 13, 14-year-old girl who identifies as a girl, from using the women's bathroom, right? So she would now be forced to use a men's bathroom.
What's that? So what the bill establishes is, number one, it's specific to athletic events, all right? And it simply establishes that biological males would use male facilities, biological females would use female facilities. If there is a student that did not feel comfortable in either one of those, then there would have to be a reasonable accommodation to allow, and whether it's a single-use restroom or changing area, so that that student did not have to be somewhere where they were uncomfortable.
Only during the duration of
The athletic
the
event.
athletic event.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. As long as we're throwing out our coaching accolades, I coached fourth grade girls lacrosse, and you haven't lived until you've coached fourth grade girls lacrosse. Anyways, I'm not seeing any other questions on the board, so here's what we're going to do at this time. Chairman Bonner, do you have anyone that you've brought along that you'd like to testify before I open it up to public comment?
Yes, we've got Ms. Riley Jones that is going to provide some testimony for us.
Ms. Jones, if you'd make your way to the podium there.
Am I good? Okay. All right.
You're good. Yeah, if you'd introduce yourself, and most importantly, tell us what school you go to. I'd like to know that.
I go to the University of Georgia right now.
Go Dogs.
So, yeah, definitely go Dogs. My dad's not here to hear that, though, so that's good.
Where did your dad go to?
University of Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Anyway, so, I'm sorry. I'm not as tall as you. My name's Riley Jones, and I've kind of done sports all throughout my life. I started as a gymnast and then kind of realized that wasn't my passion, and in high school I switched to doing track and field. Through my 4-year career at South Forsyth High School, I was a 2-time state champion, and I hold the 7A record for pole vault. So that's a sport with the stick where you go up, if anyone doesn't know. And through that, I love competition. I've always been a very competitive person. If you bring me to mini golf, I will beat you. If you bring me to golfing, I will as well. Or at least I'll try my hardest. And one thing that I love is just the teamwork and the team and all of the people that I've met throughout it. However, at the end, at the bottom of that, the reason why I love sports, and I find that a lot of my teammates do as well, is because it's fair. So I jumped 12.6 in high school. I did 1 year of Division I athletics before I hurt my arm, and I kind of am done for my career. And through that, 2 stats that I'd like to mention is that Mondo Duplantis, who's the #1 guy, he's a vaulter out of Sweden. His record for the world is 20 feet and 6 inches. So now what I'd like to bring out is for the women, one of the top women in the nation, or not, she's not competing anymore, but top woman in the world, she jumped 16.7. That's 4 feet. There's no way there's anyone that's a biological woman who could even hit 17 feet right now, I think. And that's not because we're not good at sports, and that's not good because we're not strong enough. It's just we can't do it. We don't have the ability to do what the men can do. And one thing I'd like to highlight right now is that, 16.7 is the record forever. I believe it was done in about 2010. Someone can fact check me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But one thing that I'd like to comment is that there was a sophomore last year, because track season's just now ramping up in high school. So there was a sophomore. He's graduating in 2026 out of Virginia. I forgot his name. He jumped 17.9.5. So now, 16.7 is the highest that a woman's ever jumped. There's a sophomore boy last year who jumped 17.9. That's just insane, and he's very, very good. Hopefully he comes to Georgia. But, one thing that I'd like to point out from that is the reason why I was able to win my state title was because I only went against girls. If I went against boys, they would have killed me. At the state, my senior year, I went 12.6 to win the state record and to win the competition. The boys, I believe there were 3 over 15.6. And now that's not even the women's record, but they were doing amazing. And I know all 3 of those boys have gone on to do great things. And one of them's even at Georgia jumping over 17 feet now. And so, I really think that this bill is super important in order to, keep, girls in the sport. Because if you told me tomorrow, well, I'm not competing anymore, but I guess go back, when I was competing, if you told me tomorrow that I had to compete against a boy, I would have lost all my confidence. Because I just can't keep up with them. I can't bench press 235. I'd love to be able to, but I can't. I can't run, as fast as the boys do. And so I think keeping it separate is, the best, because I can't jump. Or you can't run or you can't swim. And I know it's not just for track. I know other sports for swimming, one of my friends, she swims, and she tells me, she's like, yeah, there's this guy, and he's insane. He's going like 30 seconds faster than me. I don't know what event in, but it's just to keep it fair, like, would be best, because if I had to compete against the boys, I would have never even gotten out of regionals, let alone made it to state and been able to compete.
Good. Well, thank you for your testimony. You did great. Thank you for coming down. Congratulations on all your athletic accomplishments. You're the reason why we're here fighting for you, and just thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. At this time, Chairman, do you have anyone else you'd like to come speak?
No, we do have, there have been several letters of support that have been submitted to the committee for your review, but that's all we have at this time.
Okay, perfect. Well, for the audience, so here's our current posture. We have 15 folks signed up to speak. I am going to ask Courtney here to put a fresh list out there who anyone who has not signed up to speak, who would like to speak. We'll put that sign-up sheet right there. As I mentioned, we've got about an hour that I'd like to give to the public here. And what I love about this committee, and I think one of the accolades of this committee is we do a really good job of, we want to hear all voices, all perspectives, everyone. And so in order for us to do that, we need you all to make it good, quick, and concise. I'm not a math major, but 60 minutes divided by 15 people, there's my math major. So 4 minutes. So I'm going to start at the top of the list, and I'll read out the next couple names of folks that are going to speak. And when you come speak, you come up to the mic there. That'll be live. Say what you'd like to tell us, and then we'll go from there. And I'm going to apologize in advance for mispronouncing anybody and everybody's name here. But the first three I have are Dr. Jason Schneider, Ben Ackerley, and Elvina Pierce. So if you three go ahead and make your way on up. Perfect. And Dr. Schneider, why don't we start with you, sir? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I'm Jason Schneider, trained as an internal medicine physician, practice here in Metro Atlanta. I do provide care to gender diverse populations here in Metro Atlanta, but most of what I do is provide for the primary care and wellness, preventive care of my patients here in Georgia. And so why am I as a physician up here talking to the Education Committee? Well, it's because I know that engaging in sports is about more than competition and winning. It's actually about physical and mental health and belonging. Participating in sports is linked to better outcomes in academics, self-esteem, confidence, stress, and anxiety. The unnecessarily broad overreach of this bill, however, comes in many ways, but one is with its application to youth of all grades. According to experts in this field, from the American College of Sports Medicine and their consensus statement, The Biological Basis of Sex Differences in Athletic Performance, before puberty, sex differences in athletic performance are minimal. So again, this bill has broad overreach. Additionally, this same group, the American College of Sports Medicine, is currently finalizing a paper on the inclusion of trans athletes in sport. So let's let the experts do their job, and not legislate this right now. Additionally, the bill proposes to narrowly redefine sex based solely on one's sex at birth, on the birth certificate. And this could have many unintended consequences on the state legal code. So I know that only a small percentage of what I do in the exam room or in the hospital for my patients actually impacts their health. We have to think about things like social determinants of health. And one social determinant of health is the impact of violence on people. And according to a recent study, transgender people are over 4 times more likely to experience violent victimization, including rape, sexual assault, and aggravated or simple assault. This bill and its broad overreach would remove the added legal protections for this already vulnerable populations of Georgians in our hate crimes bill and hate crimes law that was passed with bipartisan support, I should add, back in 2000. So as a Georgia physician that cares about the health and well-being of my patients and all people in this state, I urge you to not adopt, to vote no on this bill, HB 267. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. All right, just to the audience, I know all of us are passionate about everybody here. If we refrain from kind of outward expression and all that stuff, I think that'd be good for the entire discussion. With that, I'd love to recognize Mr. Ackerley.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Ben Ackerley. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm here on behalf of Transparent. We're a group of parents of over 100 families in Georgia supporting our transgender and gender expansive kids, and we oppose HB 267. Efforts to ban transgender students from participating in athletics are attempting to fix a problem that really doesn't exist. In all of the hearings held on this issue, in the Georgia State Legislature, so far, no evidence has been presented that this is a problem for students in Georgia. We've heard a couple of instances of athletes at a very high elite level, but we're talking about a bill that would impact kids in kindergarten through 12th grade, including college. The legislature has a very important responsibility to protect all Georgians, and we need you to base your decisions on evidence, not on uneasiness with something you may not understand. Despite the rarity of transgender athletes excelling to this level of elite sport competition, these few politicized examples that have been brought up today have been used to stoke fear and mistrust of transgender people, our children. In truth, there are variations amongst athletes' bodies, regardless of their sex and gender. Policing these differences is likely to result in more gender stereotyping and discrimination, which will actually disproportionately impact cisgender girls and women of color. This bill would impact kids of all ages, real kids who just want to play with their friends, kids who are just looking for belonging and camaraderie in sport. If two people were accidentally electrocuted by their televisions, the legislature would not ban the sale of televisions. We would just solve that specific instance with regulation. We wouldn't ban the sale outright, and we ask that you not use these two politicized instances to ban our children. Fairness in sports is really just a facade to try to make this damaging legislation more palatable to the uninformed. Last year, this committee heard a bill similar to this that would have banned our children, transgender students, from using the restroom that matches their gender identity. Dozens of parents and advocates came that day and shared stories and examples about the harm that legislation could cause, and this bill would do the same. Our children deserve to be celebrated and protected, not to be used as a political statement. There are a lot of people here today to speak against this bill, and I just urge you to take a moment and consider the impact that it would have on a few kids in Georgia, again, with no instances of this actually causing harm to any Georgians. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Elvina and then Noel and Bella, if y'all would like to go ahead and make your way on up. Elvina, the floor is yours.
Hi, y'all. My name is Evelina Pierce.
Sorry.
You're good. I've worked in youth serving organizations for the bulk of my career as a teacher, coach, and administrator. Being an athlete has been a big part of my life, and I have been lucky enough to play on teams with and against transgender athletes. When learning about HB 267, I was brought back to my student teaching experience. When about a month into teaching, my mentor teacher let me know that one of the little girls in our 4th grade class was trans. I would not have known this, that she was trans, if he hadn't told me. During my student teaching experience, I learned a lot about kids' development. Kids in 4th grade are often very focused about what is fair. And as a teacher, it's important to structure your classroom responsively to that natural inclination. Kids are also continuously being taught about kindness, how to include friends, and how to make their classmates feel welcome. It would have been absurd for me to ask that little girl to use the boys' bathroom. Beyond the cruelty of forcing a child to use the wrong restroom, her peers would have surely called me out. Kids are often so much better at this stuff than adults. They keep you honest. They would have probably said, "Miss Pierce, that's unfair," or "That's weird," or "Miss Pierce, she's a girl. She's supposed to use the girls' bathroom." they would have likely understood that it would have been an act of bullying for me. They might have even sensed that there is something very wrong about grown-ups being so focused on a little girl's genitals. This bill pertains to girls' locker rooms and shared accommodations. And some of you, I assume, did not grow up playing on girls' sports teams. I think that those of us in the room who did grow up playing on girls' sports teams probably have a masterful approach to putting on and taking off a sports bra underneath our shirts so no one sees any of our body parts. I don't know what fantasies people might imagine about a girl's locker room, but my experiences have been pretty G-rated. In my time traveling and playing sports across the country, I sometimes roomed with trans teammates. It was very normal. There are no differences between rooming with a trans teammate for me and a cisgender teammate. The idea that this bill is protecting women is ridiculous. Teams foster strong, confident women, and we really do not need politicians speaking for us. The athletes and coaches who have been the best in their games, like Sue Bird, Tobin Heath, Megan Rapinoe, and Dawn Staley, do not want these laws that exclude trans people. Women leaders in sports are not sexualizing locker rooms or obsessing over genitals. Please let us govern our own bodies, our own bathrooms, and our own teams, and stay out of the way. That's how you can support women.
Thank you. Noel and Bella, and we've got Ava Boosie up next.
My name is Noelle Heatherland, and I work for Georgia Equality. I'm here on behalf of our organization and simply as a Georgia resident. I am showing up in support of all trans Georgians and for protecting all girls from harmful consequences of this bill. All of us in this room can hopefully agree that we care about keeping women and girls safe. This bill, while claiming to be about sports, is actually a much broader piece of legislation that could lead to troubling unintended consequences. I know many transgender people personally, and they are not trans for any reason other than being their true self. It is not easy to exist as a trans person in Georgia or most of the U.S., and I can guarantee you no one is transitioning for a competitive athletic edge. Most trans people don't even play sports, but all trans people could be negatively impacted through bullying due to this legislation that puts them under microscopes. As a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and domestic violence in adulthood at the hands of men, I am for taking steps to protect women. But you know who has abused me? Cisgender men. A pastor, an uncle, a grandfather, a male date, an ex-husband. You know who doesn't have statistics of hurting people, but instead having violence done to them? Trans girls and women. Forcing people who live as girls and young women every day into locker rooms with boys and men puts their lives and safety at high risk. And putting trans boys and young men into spaces intended for girls and young women will likely lead to both parties experiencing discomfort. A statewide hate crime law passed with bipartisan support in 2020. And as this bill currently stands, it could undo these protections for trans Georgians who are your own children, your children's friends, your own neighbors, and their family members. Women and girls should not be afraid of being called out for being too good at their sport. Who is going to do genitalia checks? Is my friend's little girl going to have to pull her pants down in front of a school coach, a school officer, a bully? The language in this bill surrounding reproductive systems to make a definition of sex is highly worrisome and creates opportunities for invasive inspections and trauma for all young people, including girls who are not trans. What you are all looking to propose will hurt both cis and trans women. All people, including non-transgender people, are born with various advantages that help them in sports. Just recently, I interacted with a woman volleyball player who was not trans, who was close to 7 feet tall. It's a slippery slope to make decisions about who someone is based on stereotypes or how they look. It must be hard to compete with all your heart and lose at times or share a trophy momentarily with someone you dislike or disagree with when you've been taught to hate them. Thankfully, we at Hope have all learned to embrace other human beings as being qualified and talented who seem different from us. And as my African American partner reminded me, we saw similar complaints and outcries when society, including athletics, was desegregated. And if the few transgender women who do compete at a collegiate level truly were so overly advantaged, why do we keep hearing about Riley Gaines every time we have one of these hearings? Wouldn't there be a lot more trans women and girls winning all the time than one incident 3 years ago? We keep hearing about Leah Thomas because that's the only person they have to talk about. And yet, Georgia has issues that are currently impacting every single person, like literacy and school shootings. I am a lifelong Georgian and a graduate of the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. I urge you to vote against this bill, HB 267, in order to protect all students and give everyone safe opportunities to be kids and to exist. And if you really cared about leveling the sports playing field, you would deal with equalizing girls and boys coaches' pay and ensuring girls have the same access to quality equipment and field time. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Bella. And Bella, you may be on here twice on the list. I don't know if somebody else signed you up.
I'm in high demand.
And I love it. I love it. Okay. I just want to make sure you didn't have a twin sister in the audience. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members of the committee. I'm here testifying for Park Cannon. My name is Bella Batista. I'm a proud Georgian, an inspiring civil rights attorney, and the captain of my college cheerleading squad. I'm also your Miss Buckhead USA 2025, the first ever transgender woman to compete at Miss Georgia USA this year in June. Thank you. I am also a transgender woman, as you just learned, and today I'm here to oppose HB 267 because this bill does not protect students. It harms them. For me, cheerleading isn't just a sport. It's where I learned discipline, leadership, and resilience. It's where I built lifelong friendships, where my team became my family. But under HB 267, I would be forced into spaces where I don't belong, where I am not safe, not welcome, not seen for who I truly am, and I'm not alone. Imagine being a young transgender student in Georgia today. You wake up every morning knowing that no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you contribute, the state is trying to tell you that you don't belong, that your identity is something to be legislated against, that when you step into a restroom, a locker room, or a school trip, the law will force you into an environment that denies your reality and puts you at risk. To the girls listening to this, you may have lost one race, but I do not get to go on national television every single time that I lose a competition, or every single time that my lawmakers who I voted for vote against me as a person. I lose every day. HB 267 sends a dangerous message that transgender students are not worthy of dignity, that we should be separated, singled out, and made to feel like we are a problem rather than people. But I am not a problem. I am a student, an athlete, a leader. Just like every young person in Georgia, I deserve to be treated with respect. Today, my team knew that I was going to testify today, and one girl, who I will remain anonymous, told me that she was going through domestic violence, and obviously she went to practice, and I could see that something was wrong. She told me what was wrong, and today she told me that if I wasn't there for her, that she would have taken her own life. And I want you to be able to see that as leaders, We too have to see the hardships that women face, but we're often their first line of support. This will not make schools safer. What it will do is push transgender students out of sports, out of clubs, out of classrooms. It will make kids feel isolated, ashamed, and afraid. And for what? To solve a problem that doesn't exist? Our lawmakers should be focused on real issues, on improving education, funding our schools, and making sure that all students have the resources they need to succeed. Instead, HB 267 attacks some of the most vulnerable students in our state. It does nothing but divide, exclude, and harm. I want you to remember my face today and ask yourself this question while you're praying tonight, perhaps. Why do I not deserve the same rights and liberties as the previous athlete that testified? Am I beneath her? Am I below her? I was born here in Cartersville, Georgia. I urge you to do the right thing. Reject this bill, protect all students, show transgender youth that they are valued, that they are seen, and that they have just as much right to belong in the state as anyone else. And one last thing, to all the Republican women that are supporting this bill, do you really want me in the restroom or locker room with your husbands? Thank you.
All right, we've got Ava. Excuse me. Hey, guys. Again, audience, I know we've got some serious work up here. Let's try to respect our speakers. Ava, Audrey, and Brooke are up next.
Hi, y'all. My name is Ava Bussey, and I graduated from Marietta High School last year. I'm now a freshman at Georgia Tech, so I'm hoping we can put aside any good old-fashioned rivalry for today's committee hearing. Go Jackets! I want to start by asking y'all a very important question, and it's how many of you actually know a transgender person? Okay, cool, I just wanted to know. I asked this because if you haven't, I really encourage everyone here to meet and talk to a trans person before supporting the bill. I grew up with trans kids, trans friends, and trans classmates. I've shared classrooms, lunch tables, and studied with them. The reality is the majority of people that this bill will impact will be as young as 13 and 14. This bill as it's written isn't about solving an actual problem. It's about making life harder for transgender kids who are already vulnerable. HB 267 doesn't just target transgender people. It opens the door to harmful policies that could lead to invasive school policies for all kids, especially young girls. It could be used to justify forcing kids into bathrooms that don't align with their lived reality, making school a more dangerous and uncomfortable place for them. I want to make something very clear. There was never an issue of safety between my trans peers and me. We supported one another and we were one school community. The narrative that this bill is about protecting young women is simply not true. As a young woman, I feel far more unsafe knowing that HB 267 could encourage people to scrutinize or challenge the gender of any girl who just doesn't meet their expectations of femininity or of gender. It raises questions for me like, how will this bill even be enforced? Will girls be forced to carry around birth certificates or undergo invasive examinations? The idea that any middle or high school girl could be pulled aside and made to prove her gender is terrifying for me as a young woman with an even younger sibling in 4th grade over in Cobb County. That is what makes me feel unsafe, not trans kids using the bathroom or playing on teams with their friends. This bill isn't about fairness. It isn't about protecting women. It is government overreach that exploits a lack of familiarity with transgender people to exclude transgender kids from our schools and our sports. That is wrong and out of line with Georgia values. To create a welcoming school community for all of Georgia's children to learn how to shape a better future and pursue our dreams. As Georgians, I know we share the desire for kids in our state to have the freedom to learn, to be themselves, and to grow up healthy and safe. I urge you to act on that desire today by opposing HB 267. Thank you all for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Just a quick housekeeping. We've got about 30 minutes to go. I've got about 10 names, so right at about 3 minutes each. You guys are doing great so far. I had candy at the last one. I may need to bring it back. You guys are doing a good job of getting in, getting out. Great comments. So, Audrey, you're up, and then Brooke is next.
Chairpersons, members of the committee, and friends, my name is Aubrey Escalera, and I am a graduate from a public school and also Georgia Tech. And I am here to oppose HB 267, the Riley Gaines Act, due to disproportionate harm to cisgender women of color, women with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, intersex people, and post-operative trans women. This bill enforces rigid definitions of womanhood that fail to account the biological diversity, unfair targeting women with naturally high testosterone levels, Black and Latina athletes already subjected to disproportionate gender policies, will face increased scrutiny. Additionally, post-operative trans women who meet all medical and legal standards will be excluded despite of having undergone full transition. Schools and sports organizations already have policies in place to ensure for competitions. This bill imposes unnecessary barriers that reinforce discrimination rather than fairness. Furthermore, most transition individuals complete their transitions as adults. Most trans individuals complete their transition as adults and often during college, meaning that they will not be seeking to dominate sports, but rather live authentically and reach their peak of their transition. HB 267 does not protect women in sports. It marginalizes women based on outdated exclusionary standards. I urge this community to oppose and reject this bill. Instead, support policies that create inclusivity, fairness, and equal opportunities for all women. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Brooke, Brittany, and L. Knott.
Oh, wait, was it you? Audrey. Oh, Audrey then. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're good.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Audrey Lux, and I'm a transgender woman, former collegiate athlete, and graduate of a public state university. I speak today on behalf of myself and other Georgia constituents who are afraid to speak here today in vehement opposition to House Bill 267, and ask that the committee unfavorably report this bill's passage. As a rower and coxswain for the women's crew team in college, I learned some of the valuable life skills that athletics has to teach us. Every weekday, I'd wake up around 4 a.m. and train on the ergs or out on the water with the other women on my team. We'd practice different drills, then hurry back to campus for our 8 a.m. classes. We competed in regattas across the Southeast, from Georgia and Tennessee to North Carolina and Virginia. I managed to avoid all controversy and publicity during my time with crew. The reason you haven't heard of me on the news is because I was simply not a great athlete. And that doesn't fit well into your narrative. I practiced just as hard as the other women, but I was simply not as fast as some of them, and that's just a biological reality. In fact, my testosterone levels are lower than that of the average woman, and I have the blood test to show it. It wasn't me that set the fastest women's school record for the 2K or 5K, but two other cisgender women. In fact, no boat I was ever in came in first place, and one time we even came in dead last. You may be asking, why then did you and your other teammates continue to enter regattas you knew you couldn't win? Well, partly because it would give us an excuse from classes, but mainly because it was fun. If this bill were to pass, it would rob upwards of 10 women and girls across the state of opportunities like mine to have fun with their teammates and make the most out of the one life God has given us. I'll close with this. Trans women are the ultimate underdogs, and if you've ever watched any sports movie ever, you know that the underdog may lose every battle, but in the end, where it really matters, we win. I welcome any questions from the committee at this time.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Brooke, Brittany, and Elle.
So sorry about that before. I appear to have gotten ahead of myself. Now,
You're all
I just
good.
need to confirm, we are working off a substitute here, correct? Or am I mistaken? No, we're working off the original bill filed in.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we have some fantastic constituent turnout, and I do appreciate y'all taking the time to hear us all out. And I'm not entirely certain we'll be able to get everyone's input in, so perhaps we should. Now, I'm not a member of this committee, so I cannot put a motion forward, but I would recommend you, as the chair, perhaps take the opportunity to do a follow-up here, and just to make sure everyone gets heard out, and we hear all sides of this. Now, this is a pretty broad bill, so it's going to take me a minute to just work through it. So let's go through it. Now, obviously, we have the sports angle, and regardless of how y'all feel, it feels a bit strange to be working a sports bill that also regulates fishing and game. I mean, how do those two aspects interact? Or the Vital Records Office. Now, I can understand that the bill author is very passionate about this belief, but I don't have the exact line number on here just because, unfortunately, my laptop's battery already died. But it's a bit of a shambolic mess, and I can understand that Rep Bonner here got a little bit overexcited in the drafting process. So
he's got a hold on. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh.
That's the bill right there. If you need to
Oh,
come,
I do appreciate
You're
that.
good. Go for it.
I do appreciate that. Like I said, it's a bit of a big one, and I do think we do need to take a moment to acknowledge just where this bill came from. Frontline policy. We all saw Chelsea Thompson hanging over the rep's ear over here, basically just instruction on what to say, and we have to acknowledge their position on transgender Georgians. The president a few days ago in a closed newsletter openly said he wishes to see the eradication of transgender people in North America, going as far as saying he wishes to be the one to deal the death blow himself. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems a little eradicationist, and I know a little bit about that as my great-grandparents survived a little pogrom known as the Shoah. Now, I do ask that you don't shut off my mic at this point because a couple of your colleagues in the other chamber felt a little conflicted about allowing someone, the child of survivors of the Holocaust to speak. I don't know. That's their gig, but just hear me out here. Now, we're going through a similar framework here where we're writing out transgender Georgians out of law, same way that my grandparents had themselves as Jews written out of the Polish law. And frankly, that's the most alarming line in here is separate but equal. When? Goodness gracious, when in the history of this nation has separate but equal ever been a good framework to work off of? Now, obviously, the bill author here is passionate about these issues, but I don't think this is the right way to go about this. Clearly, he's gone a bit in over his head, and he either needs to go back to the drawing board, bring forward a substitute that helps clarify some of these issues, or perhaps just work off a different bill. HB 104 is certainly certainly a bit more amenable, and we also have to address the legal challenges here because due to the rewriting of the state code, this would go against 11th Circuit cases, Corbett v. Secretary of the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, and I'm sorry, I appear to have forgotten the other case. It was also an extension of Corbett, however, it was a district case, not the 11th Circuit. Now, redefining trans people out of the law under the 11th Circuit is currently non-permitted. Now, we are allowed to issue stipulations such as requiring surgery, which is the current required baseline under the OCGA for changing gender or sex. That means you have to undergo some sort of anatomical sex correction or change. I don't have the OCGA code. I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, just a second. I'm sorry. You're a little over 4 minutes right now. If you could give me your best 60 seconds, that would be great. And then I know many of us on the committee would be happy to get with you afterwards.
Absolutely. I'm all yours after.
Okay. Awesome.
I think I got everything pretty thoroughly.
You're awesome. Thank you so much. I've got Brittany, L, and Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brittany Stankoff. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from Snellville, Georgia. I've been a lifelong Georgian all my life, and I would urge this committee to vote no on passing this bill on towards the broader House. This bill is a massive step of overreach. Instead of being limited specifically to children's sports or just sports on a school level in general throughout the state, this bill goes out of the way to remove all references of gender out of the code of Georgia. This has led to an unintended consequence where the section defining or redefining parts of Article 1, Chapter 3, Section 1, the definitions, replaces grammatical gender on line 4 with grammatical sex. And considering the way sex is defined throughout the rest of this bill, I don't think the word man is capable of producing sperm. This is considering the rest of that part also talks about tense and number. This is clearly a grammatical thing and not a biological thing. Specifically on lines 260 and 261 and 263, man here is defined as an adult human male, whereas woman is defined as a human female. There's no adult there. This bill largely is a attempt to further remove any dignity transgender students and people in this state have as a part of our basic humanity. For goodness sake, I'm not an athlete myself. I never did athletics when I was in high school or anything like that. I was just never interested in it. No one out there is going to be going through years and years of medical transition, social transition, putting up with bullies from anywhere from the ages of 9 to 19, just to do a little bit better in something like a water polo match. It's an absurd claim to make that people are doing this specifically to get an advantage at sports. This is years and years of stuff. Moreover, that advantage from being born biologically male and having testosterone through you, that just degrades after several years on estrogen. That just goes away entirely. In short, this bill is wildly out of touch with the needs of Georgians, rushed and hodgepodged in a sense that I didn't think possible, frankly. Contains multiple errors as to goodness gracious, my brain is not working right now.
You're good. Take your time. It takes a lot of courage to get up there. I appreciate what you're doing. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, especially with no script.
That's impressive. Yeah.
This bill, in short, is part of a larger project to strip all dignity and rights from transgender Georgians out of the law. And that is not something I particularly appreciate, as we haven't done anything to deserve this. I sell used books. I don't see how this is some widespread issue when there is only one case you can keep bringing back up over and over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Elle, Aubrey, and Sarah on deck. And thank you for everyone who gets up and speaks. I get nervous every time I'm behind there, so you guys are rock stars. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time and everyone's attention. I know we've been in here for a while. My name is Elle Knott, and I'm the Advocacy Manager at YWCA Greater Atlanta, a women's organization where we are on a mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, dignity, and freedom for all people. And we oppose HB 267 because it's not in alignment with that mission. This legislation does not protect students or women. In fact, such bathroom and sports restrictions lead to abuse and harassment for trans youth and could invite discrimination against girls, requiring them to prove their gender if they are seen as too strong or too skilled at the sport that they choose to compete in. These restrictions will be almost impossible to enforce and dangerous to women. Women, we are more than our reproductive systems, and defining sex in Georgia's code based on our chromosomal or reproductive capacity is also limiting and could lead to discrimination against postmenopausal women, women with fertility challenges, and women who've had hysterectomies or other medical procedures. Georgian women need our lawmakers to focus on issues that would actually improve our lives and keep them safe. We know that we are on a very limited amount of time here in a 40-day session, and I just beg you to spend your time on issues that would actually improve the lives of women and girls in this state. Please vote no on HB 267. Thank you.
Audience, I got to give my prize 38 seconds. That's how you do it right there. Aubrey and Sarah are up next. And Mike Griffin, if you've come in the room, I haven't seen him. Aubrey or Sarah? I guess Aubrey Escalera. Did she already go? No, you did. Oh, nice. Okay. Then Gracie Gainey, you're after Sarah. Gracie, yeah. Go for it.
All right. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Beth Nolan. I serve as legal counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. We are the nation's leading nonprofit legal organization that works specifically with free speech and constitutional issues, and we often speak on legislation on its constitutionality. And I'm here to speak a little bit about the privacy portions of the bill. We know that young girls and women across the country are harmed when they are forced to strip and in front of males. We know that putting them in a compromised position puts them in harm's way. We've seen that state after state. I'm from Atlanta, and I live now in Atlanta, but I've seen this all over the country. We've seen it from Virginia to Ohio. And so really what I wanted to talk about today is specifics on how this functions in real life through the schools at athletic events. These definitions, they're not novel. They've been used in other states. And what we see is that they are inclusive. So anyone that has a disorder that is under the Americans with Disability Act, this bill works in tandem with the ADA. So those individuals are accommodated just like they're accommodated under the ADA. When we look at how the designations work, it treats males and females identical. So whether you're a female or a male, you are offered the space that is multi-user, that is designated for your sex, but for any reason, like we see many women who have suffered abuse may choose to use a single user, and it has the schools accommodate those individuals during athletic events that they have a space where they are comfortable to change or use the restroom. Our firm represents a family who, talking about the portion of the bill that speaks to overnight accommodations. We represent a family, their middle school daughter was away on a school field trip and was coerced to share a bed with a male, which she was uncomfortable with. And thankfully, by the end of the debacle, she was able to call home and her parents were able to step in. But this is a real reality. And so what we're looking at in this bill is treating all of the kids the same and promoting mutual respect. We would never tell our daughter that she must change in front of someone against her will. And that's what this would do if there's not protections in place. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about specifically the privacy portions of the bill as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nolan. Gracie Gainey, and then Mike Griffin. I saw you come in after that. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like the rest of us, I'm here because I care a lot about, I believe everyone should have fairness and equal opportunities. It's because of my devotion to these things and logical consistency that I felt compelled to speak against HB 27. So let's be logically consistent. If transgender women and girls should be banned from girls' sports because some cisgender women and girls could not win, then so should the cisgender women and girls who not only can, but have done it. I would argue that would be very unfair to the 7 swimmers who competed in the race where Leah Thomas came in 8th place, dead last. It wouldn't be fair to the 4 swimmers who won the race where Leah Thomas tied in 5th place with Riley Gaines, who ironically has now spent the last 3 years complaining that she had to go up against someone who performed the same as her. That wouldn't be fair to the Olympic weightlifters who won medals in 2021 at Tokyo when Laurel Hubbard, a trans woman, did not. Not to mention, of course, all the cisgender women and girls who would have to go up against boys whom this bill defines as biologically female, but who have to take testosterone and estrogen blockers as a treatment for gender dysphoria. Now, there are those who would say that trans boys who take testosterone hormones should not compete with girls either. If that's the case, then, I don't know, doesn't that show that it really is just about ostracizing and excluding these people? To any cisgender athletes who would feel discouraged from participating because they feel like they couldn't win, I would say, work on your attitude. You have a lousy attitude if it's not enough to be the best that you can be, and you need to be better than everyone else to the point of wanting to exclude an entire demographic. Contrary to what Ricky Bobby's dad says, you are not necessarily last if you ain't first. So at this point, I believe the supporters of HB 267 have a choice. Either be honest and admit that this has nothing to do with fairness and everything to do with demonizing scapegoats for the purposes of justifying discrimination, or keep lying to the people of Georgia. But before you make your decision, I feel I should admonish you that as long as you keep choosing the latter, we will continue to call you out on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I did not have Talladega Nights on my card, but that's awesome. Mike, with Georgia Baptist, if you would come up. And Mike, we're asking folks to 3 minutes or so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Mike Griffin. I'm the Public Affairs Representative for the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. And we did have handed out to you when you came in a copy of a resolution that was passed in 2021 entitled Protecting Girls Sports. As Georgia Baptist, I do represent up to 1.4 million Georgians and approximately 3,500 churches, and this resolution was passed. And we, as Georgia Baptists, look at it from basically 3 perspectives, and no one would be surprised at the first one, and that is a biblical perspective, of course, that according to Genesis 1:27, everyone created it as either male or female in the image of God, and everyone is created with special, and they're unique, and they're loved by God, and therefore everyone is to be respected and appreciated from this godly point of view. From a common sense perspective, it just makes sense that biological males should compete in sporting events against biological males, and biological females should compete in sports against biological females. I mean, just the very nature of who they are at birth puts them naturally into 2 gender categories. No matter what the emotional, physical, medical attempts are made to change one's gender, 400 years from now, if they're removed from their grave, the DNA will be the same as it was at birth. And then just from a from a fairness perspective, it's simply not fair for girls to be forced to compete against those that are physically are not equal. They're not equal to, and it is a fact that men naturally have greater muscle mass, bone density, higher lung capacity, and larger hearts than women. It's also not fair that girls be discriminated against by being denied college scholarships or recognition for holding sporting event records because biological males are allowed to compete against them. So we would deeply appreciate the committee's favorable support of this very needed legislation, we feel like, in our day and time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. With that, I believe that ends our public comment. If the author of the bill, Chairman Bonner, if you'd make your way back up to the podium. Okay. Do you want to speak? All right, Representative Parks, you were motioning me. Were you wanting to speak, or?
My team member signed up so that I could speak. I was wondering if you would allow me to.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Take the papers.
Yeah, Representative, we've been trying to keep folks to 2-3 minutes.
The committee, I have some handouts for y'all to the Oh, it's okay. You're busy enough. Just want to quickly come up, remind y'all, I have been down here for 9 years, and this is one of the most poorly drafted bills that I have seen because of the fact that it undoes one of the most bipartisan bills that we worked on together. That was the hate crime statute. I think we all know when Ahmaud Arbery passed away that it was very important that we all came together under Speaker Ralston's hand to say, listen, under Calvin Smyre's work to say, we have to address what happens when hate happens in our state. And specifically, we wrote in gender, because gender is a socially constructed term that many people would write into their lawsuits, meaning if somebody said this person hit me because I was a woman, if gender was not written into the hate crime code, they technically would not have a lawsuit because they would have to say this person hit me because I'm female, which is sex. So I really would ask that, we just take out the part with the hate crime bill. I think that's an easy amendment. Ralston is watching. Smyre is here. Please, I'm begging you to take that part out of the bill. The second part, of course, that I'm deeply concerned about is as it relates to how do we determine what happens in sports? How do we determine who should be able to play? And we are talking about panty police. We are talking about who is going to be actually deciding and looking at these children. And so an amendment related to, just looking at birth certificates, I don't think it's right either, but I'll take it. Please amend that part, just at least, to just go by the birth certificates if we have to even go there. I want to just leave y'all with an analogy, and I'm pouring my heart out to y'all. I've done this many times on the floor. I'm one of the only legislators down here that has trans staff. It is very difficult to be in this environment, and they still serve you. So just know that they have worked. For Valentine's Day, I handed out to a number of members because even though I'm in the minority, I feel like I serve everybody. I'm proud to be a secretary here. And so I am providing you with facts, data, polls, information. If you just want to sit in your office and have a one-on-one with me, you don't want me to ever tell anybody that we had a meeting, I will do it. But you need to be responsible enough. I am in my 30s. Y'all have succeeded that already. Be responsible enough to understand the facts as it relates to sex and gender. Just need to understand. So this is my analogy. You say that somebody gets hurt. Their knee is hurt. So they get a knee surgery. Now you say they have a bionic knee and they're going to win every race. That is basically what you are doing here. When in fact, that person has to go through that surgery, go through recovery, learn how to walk again. They may never run again. And as somebody stated here today, in their personal experience, if you move specifically in the way that many individuals do when they transition, you basically enter a neutral state and you lose your testosterone. And so when you are adding in additional hormones, you never regain and be this amazing person that is now with this bionic leg. So I just ask you, please make those two amendments, if nothing else, and then use me privately and stop with this bionic leg stuff, because it's not. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative, and I thank you for your passion. I thank you for your team and the work they do down here. And I'm proud to say I've met with you. You haven't lived until you've done a town hall with Representative Park. Her constituents love her. I don't think I was as popular, but that's okay. Chairman Bonner, if you'd come back up, make any comments that you like, and then I've got a couple lights up here, and we'll entertain a motion if there is one.
Certainly. Well, again, I appreciate the committee for hearing testimony. I appreciate all those that actually provided testimony. I really am grateful that folks took time out of their day to come to the Capitol to find a place to park, make their way in, and advocate. I certainly appreciate that. I know that we don't always see eye to eye on all of these issues, but your advocacy is very much appreciated, and this is, in my estimation, this is how the process works. So even for all those I don't agree with, I appreciate y'all being here and providing testimony. Mr. Chairman, I think I'll let the other testimony stand. I know we have a couple of amendments to address, and I'll be certainly open to hearing that.
All right, thank you. I will recognize Chairman Chokus to my right for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that HB 267 LC 492204 receive the due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have a second? All right. Now would be the appropriate time for any discussion on that motion. And if anyone would like to offer any amendments, I know the author has mentioned a few. I will recognize the gentleman, the floor leader, Wade, to my extreme right.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for bringing the bill. And, I wanted to say this first, if that's okay. I served on a school board for almost 16 years and very involved with my local college and university, a father of two, a son of two educators that dedicated their life to serving children. And one of the most paramount belief systems that was embedded in me by my late father and my mother is every single human being has inextricable value, cannot be measured. But we also have to understand that we have to balance fairness, safety, and the balance of it when one person has a right to do something and another person has a right to do another thing. And when sometimes there's conflict, and we have to debate those things. And I do appreciate, as Chairman Bonner said, look, we're all Georgians trying to serve Georgians, and I appreciate the approach and your leadership on the issue and being willing to listen to those that may not agree with you or me, or like in my house, sometimes we joke, I don't agree with myself from last week sometimes because we have new information and new facts. So with that, I just want to make sure that the sponsor knows this is a friendly request for consideration, and we may need Ledge Council to weigh in. Reading through the bill, I just want to make sure that in Section 2, do we need, is it the intent of you as the sponsor that we reference the same title and code section for post-secondary institutions as we did for the K-12 as it relates to the multi-occupancy rooms, changing areas, and the designated spaces? Does that need to be in that section just to make sure it's clear? I don't think you meant to exclude that.
Yes, it does. You're absolutely correct.
Okay. So then I don't have that language yet, so at the appropriate time when the Ledge Council, if he can provide that language to the sponsor, I think that would be something for the body to consider.
For clarification, is the request to expand the application of Part 2 of the bill to post-secondary institutions?
Just as it relates to, and that may not be the proper location if it needs to be in a separate section that is more, I guess, germane to, that post-secondary area. But I think my understanding in some of the early discussions is that the issue that happened at the higher ed level to give, and look, I've got a son and a daughter, and they're 11 and 8, and we are dealing with my daughter who is 11, and she now, I'm not allowed to go in the bathroom. It's her and mom. That's her decision. I'm not going to be in there when she's doing her shower and bath, and she has that right, and I'm her father. And, my son knows that's her safe space to be with mom as she moves from, being a youngster to adolescence. So I know that the same situation with collegiate athletes, they don't want to be in a position, and I do understand the lengths to which young ladies go to change. I
I remember being in high school and dealing with situations as well, and my wife is a former athlete, and I've heard some interesting stories about women's locker rooms in college too. So I'm trying to do it as respectful as possible and make sure that the bill sponsor's objective is met to provide that same opportunity to, just for the safety aspect and so that they can have comfort when they're preparing for an athletic event.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I would be able to recommend amendment language at this stage to accomplish such a significant change to the bill. This bill is not amenable to simply adding that additional level of education, that layer of education level. If we could just insert references to post-secondary, that would be one thing. This bill refers not only to local school systems and public schools, it also makes reference to the Professional Standards Commission, which has no jurisdiction at the collegiate level. So the enforcement mechanisms would have to be modified. It really would need to be, and frankly, it should be in Chapter 3 or in Chapter 1 of Title 20 rather than Chapter 2, which is specific to elementary and secondary schools. The best practice for drafting would be to create an additional section or part to this bill to cover the post-secondary component.
Okay.
I'll leave that to the sponsor.
And we'll just leave it for now then.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to recognize Representative Ballard to my left. A few amendments that I think she would like to share, friendly amendments on.
Right.
Well, hold on. Okay. Floor Leader Wade, getting into the Robert's Rules of Orders here. Can you withdraw your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my amendment requests.
Just trying to keep out of trouble with Ms. Courtney here. To my left, Representative Ballard.
Thank you so much for bringing this bill. I think that we've kind of heard some concerns about how, this will be assessed. We've heard some concerns that our children, might have to strip or whatever. I wonder if after line 180, we could insert the following language, if you would be amenable to this. Nothing in this code section shall be construed to authorize a public school, local school system, post-secondary education institution, or athletic association to verify or confirm a student's sex through visual inspection of the student's external sex organs for purposes of participation in athletic events. However, this shall not prohibit reliance on medical records or other standard school medical procedures for such verification.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would certainly be amenable to that. It is certainly, as we spoke to earlier, it is not the intent of the bill to have a row of students lined up and to strip search.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have an amendment on the table. Do we have a second to that amendment? Second. All right. Any discussion on the amendment? Do you want her to okay. And then
Do we read it all, or do you want me just to give you the shortened version? Okay.
And Representative, hold on real quick. Legislative Council, you have your button pushed. Did you want to?
Only the amendment as it was read is specific to this individual code section. My question would be if you would want it to apply to the entire article. The amendment says nothing in this code section shall be construed.
Yeah.
Actually, want it to be applicable to the entire article.
Okay.
So
that is correct. Representative Ballard, you're on.
Okay. Nothing shall be construed in the article, as we've just said, shall be construed to authorize a public school, local school system, post-secondary education institution, or athletic association to verify or confirm a student's sex through visual inspection of the student's external sex organs for purposes of participation in athletic events. However, this shall not prohibit reliance on medical records or other standard school medical procedures for such verification.
Okay. Representative Wilkerson, did that answer what you need?
It answers it. I guess my concern is that it does not prohibit
So if the local district says, you know what, we're just going to make it easy, drop your pants, I mean, there's nothing to stop them from doing that in this amendment. It just says it doesn't construe that you have the ability to do it, but it doesn't also prohibit you from doing it. I guess that's my only concern.
Okay. Representative Lallier. Something else. Okay. Okay. All right. We have a motion, a second. So we'll go ahead and take the committee at this time. All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Representative Ballard, I will recognize you. I believe you may have a second amendment. Audience, I'm going to chair. I've got to go present a bill on another committee, so my trusty vice chair, Brent Cox, is going to take my seat. Just housekeeping again. Meet the lovely Brent Cox.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? You all situated over there? So looking at this section on page 5, lines 99 through 107. Where it deals with the local superintendent and the principal and school personnel. If we could remove lines 99 to 107, and then add to line 98 after the word commission, just say as provided in code section 20-2-984.5. Everybody's really quiet.
So, Mr. Chairman, that is at the request of the Professional Standards Commission. Essentially, they were asking to make sure that that the bill lined up with their current ability and their current statutory authority. So it just lines up instead of going in and naming those specific individuals. The code section that references lists out all those that fall under the purview of the PSC. That way you don't have one set of verbiage in this bill that is not the same as what exists in the code related to the PSC.
Okay. Well, yes. So we have a second?
Yes.
Second?
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Hold on just a minute. Okay.
If I may recommend, this would be wholly consistent with the proposed amendment, but it would avoid any possible confusion. In line 96, a reference is made to the following individuals as applicable. If you are removing lines 99 through 107, that would be nonsensical to say the following individuals as applicable. So I would recommend, in addition to the proposed language, revising lines 96 to read Standards Commission, comma, such non-compliant individual shall be subject to.
So removing the following individuals is applicable?
Correct.
In lieu of?
And replacing that with such non-compliant individual shall be subject to a minimum fine of.
And that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Okay. Any more discussion on this amendment? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just
Chairman Jaspers.
Chairman Blotter, just to make sure that I'm clear with you, that change to that code section is in agreement with what you have described here.
That is correct. And
Okay.
again, that was at the recommendation of the PSC.
Okay.
Okay, Chairman Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chairman, thank you for this bill. Let's since we're in this section on line 97, having served on the PSC board, I do not believe the PSC is set up to levy and enforce fines, and definitely not to collect those. Would it be amenable, as we're in this section on these lines here, to allow them to do which they are, and that's to investigate and to sanction if they find that there is incorrectness here, but not to levy a fine? Do you understand my question?
Is that a question to me? I do. Yes, I do understand the question. I mean, I will say when I presented this language to the PSC, what came back is exactly what I presented as an option. So,
again, Mr. Chairman, what I'd state is I'm very aware, having served on them, that they don't levy the fines. They investigate and then sanction within their purview. But I've never heard of the PSC collecting those fines or fining with that. I guess maybe further investigation ought to go. I wouldn't want to create a problem for the PSC trying to enforce what we put in here by not having the personnel or the ability to do that.
I understand. I mean, I'd certainly be willing to take a look at that, between now and another opportunity to amend the bill. But I would like that opportunity to continue that conversation.
If we could, let's just have a conversation with the PSC,
Absolutely.
See where they're at on it, and if they're okay with this language, then we'll move forward if that's the will. Thank you.
Okay, number 7, Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's already been said, but I want to agree with the chairman, Irwin, back there, is that $1,000 fine, I think, still kind of creates the issue. So as you move forward, as it moves to full committee, if you could add my name to that, requesting a change, as well as to to Floor Leader Wade's point, if we could kind of clear up the language between K-12 and post-secondary. We're kind of mixing it here a little bit, and if we could clearly define where the penalties go, because right now, I guess in the bill, it looks like there's really no penalties for colleges violating it, only for K-12. So just any clarification we could do would be helpful.
Understand.
Thank you.
Good point.
Okay, it's time to vote on the amendment. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, amendment passes. Any further discussion? Yes. Representative number 8.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I have an amendment that I feel like the committee, just based on our conversation, would be amenable to. It seems as if we're trying to prevent physical touch and inspection of any child or student's gender, right? And in order to prevent that, it would be wise to just lean on the birth certificate, correct?
Well, we do have the language in there that does address the birth certificate, and I think the amendment that we just included addresses the issue of inspection.
So I'm looking at lines 47 through 49, and it has language that says can be observed. And I have proposed language to just clean that up. That would just read sex means an individual's biological sex, either male or female, which shall only be verified by the individual's birth certificate.
Well, so this portion lies in the definitions. So I would not be amenable to altering the definitions. I don't think that this speaks to the process by which it's determined as it relates to athletics. This is simply a defining term that has been tested legally in other states that we want to make sure that we keep consistent.
I just want us to be sure that we're clear on that, because if we're wanting to use that original birth certificate as a means to verify a student or a child's gender, can be observed, just lends confusion, in my opinion. I think that there's probably a cleaner way to define sex.
If you look at 48, it says verified at or before birth. So that's what it specifically, as the definition of sex means, is verified. The verification is at or before.
Okay, I'll waive that.
Okay. So you would like to withdraw?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're ready to vote on the bill as amended. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Okay, now, any discussion? Okay, we're done. Bill passes. Thank you. And meeting's adjourned. Thank you.